speaking up is extremely important. Providing your opinion, taking on projects, raising your hand and saying, "Hey, Curtis, I would be the best people and culture leader you've had, so you should hire me or promote me." There's been a time where I've gone to Curtis and done exactly that. So as long as you speak up when it's appropriate, right? And I think if you show up consistently, you work hard, you'll naturally be successful.
Welcome to the Collective Mic, the podcast where women leaders get loud about what really matters. I'm your host, Joyce Tody, founder of Collective Women's Leadership. We are not here for fluff. We're here to lead, build, and rise together. Whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, building your own brand, or redefining leadership on your terms, this mic is for you. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the Collective Mic. My name is Joyce Tody, and I'm so excited to be sitting down with two individuals today. Curtis Edenfield, can you believe it? I'm bringing a male on for the first time who is shaking up things in the aviation industry. He is the CEO of Thrive Aviation, based out of Henderson, Nevada, here in Vegas. And we also have Kelly, his VP of People and Culture. I'm so excited to have both of you here today. Typically, as you know, the Collective Mic is all about women. And today we are talking to them about how Thrive Aviation is really a champion for women in a male-dominated industry. When we all think of aviation, you typically think of males at the top, males in the pilot roles, males in the mechanic roles, all of those things. And I think what I love that Curtis has done in his time since being CEO at Thrive is really surround himself with very powerful women in some pretty high positions. So with that, Curtis, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. We're honored. Appreciate it.
And tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you came about as the CEO of Thrive, what brought you to Vegas, and really your philosophy with women in leadership.
Sure, absolutely. So we started the company in 2018. I was previously in Dallas, Texas, and had an opportunity to start a on-demand charter company, which is what Thrive is. My background was Southwest Airlines. And we always say that, I love Southwest. There was a lot of great things that I took from there. A lot of the culture that we try to emulate and a lot of the things that we do internally with hiring and promoting and stacking the leadership team comes from my time at Southwest, to be honest. But we're obviously in aviation, but a different arena than them. And so moved out here in 2018 to start the company. There's 3 partners in the business. We started with a handful of small planes. At the time, it was just 6 what you would call light jets. And it was a whirlwind to get up and going with the FAA and hangar space and office and hiring, plus a completely new city, state, and culture for my family and I, moving from Texas here to Las Vegas. And really from the get-go, we set out we always say that we want to look back in 5 years and be proud of what we built and like who we built it with. So that's kind of been our ethos from day one. The business model kind of kicked off immediately and worked, if you will. And since we launched and really started flying in 2019, obviously hit some hiccups there with COVID, rebounded pretty quickly from that. And as it sits today, we have over 30 airplanes in our fleet, about 250 employees, about 50,000 square feet of hangar space at Harry Reid and our corporate office, like what you mentioned, in Henderson. And yeah, we have a robust leadership team. As a matter of fact, 3 out of our 7 vice presidents at Thrive are women. And so Kelly is amazing and part of the inner circle as we joke around with. But it's been so incredible to have Kelly as the champion of people and culture for us at Thrive, and she's just done an absolutely incredible job. I think one of the kudos that we were going through at our all hands, specifically with Kelly's department, is last year we hired over 120-something people.
143.
143.
Definitely knows.
143 people.
Yes.
So we hired 143 people. That's 12 people a month.
Wow.
And that doesn't include the interviews and looking at the resumes, right, and then the onboarding and the in-doc and just everything that goes with it. And so that is just absolutely incredible and would not have been possible without just one of the many things that Kelly does exceptionally well.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a nice education for our audience and viewership. But traditionally, aviation, as I said earlier, is male dominated. And was supporting women leadership deliberate for you as you were building this, or did it evolve naturally as you were building the departments out of Thrive?
Yeah, I would say, so you are correct. Aviation is typically male-dominated industry. I would say that it happened both. It was organic and intentional. So what we say at Thrive is we're building a team, not necessarily a family, and we want the best players on the team to be in the starting lineup. And so whoever that is, we want to be able to like I mentioned earlier, like who we work with and have the best people possible. And it doesn't really matter in my perspective, necessarily where they came from or their background, whether that's in aviation or not. I mean, Kelly had no aviation background and came in here and was curious and hungry and excited and eager and would ask these amazing questions and wanted to learn. And immediately within a couple months, we knew like, hey, there's something really special with Kelly. And we were having conversations at a very high leadership level, and we constantly would say, we need Kelly in here. We need Kelly's opinion. We need her advice. How do we navigate this situation? And so we'd be having leadership meetings, and then Kelly would come in for like 10 minutes and then leave. And then we'd be like, okay, wait, hold on. All right, go grab Kelly again. She needs, and then it's like, what are we doing?
Right.
Like Kelly should just be sitting at the table with us because everything that we're deciding, we want her very valuable input on.
What do you think many male leaders misunderstand about what it actually means to champion women in leadership today?
That's a very good question. I think for me, one of the things that's been really nice having a lot of women helping drive the strategy and decisions at Thrive is there's a certain level of empathy and perspective that quite frankly just goes right over my head.
Sure.
And so I think that has been one of the biggest things for me is that I want to be able to, when decisions are made, I want to be able to hear all opinions and make the best decision for Thrive. And we also always say this. So every decision at Thrive is made through the lens of for the greater good of Thrive, whatever that may be. And I always joke around that maybe there's one day that I'm not CEO, and that would be for the greater good of Thrive, right? Because we're responsible for 250 employees and all these airplanes and stuff, and so it's bigger than all of us. And so for me, what's been great is just having that different perspective and that lens of empathy and looking at things differently and just taking a different approach and a different perspective that has been very, very valuable for me.
Sure. And Thrive.
Oh, ultimately Thrive. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Has there ever been a time where you were kind of challenging the industry standards and norms and people were questioning or other industry experts were questioning or challenging having to have maybe these uncomfortable conversations, or you really wanting to put a female in a position that maybe from an industry standard wasn't the norm, and that you had to justify that at times? Has that ever happened? Even in closed conversations? I mean, you don't have to be specific, but were you ever like, wow, this has never happened in an aviation company before?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think specifically in the pilot role in the cockpit, that is definitely historically been traditionally, male pilots, and I think over the past 10 to 15 years, we've seen a lot of women that are curious about aviation and want to become a pilot. And I think at Thrive we do a fantastic job. Again, we want the most qualified, the best people. And what's absolutely incredible is a lot of the time that's women in the cockpit for us. I think, as a matter of fact, Kelly, you probably know this, but some of the stats on so every year the employees nominate Employees of the Year and then Aviators of the Year. So aviators are the flight crew, cabin attendants, and our pilots. And I think over the past two out of the last 3 years.
Correct. Yep.
The PIC, the pilot in command, that is voted by the peers at Thrive the Aviator of the Year for the PIC has been a woman the past two out of the past 3 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and that has
incredible.
nothing to do with that.
Sure.
Literally, we send a survey out to all the employees.
Yeah, I love that. And that speaks volumes about the culture that you're really, and the culture that you're continuing to uphold and talk about in regards to, women becoming more prominent in aviation. And you have such a great platform to do that. Being new, right? You can kind of do away with standard industry norms, if you will.
Sure.
Because you're a newer company in this different kind of specialized space. So I think that's great. Earlier you said, women do bring that empathy and perspective side that oftentimes males don't necessarily inherently have, right? That you may have to practice it, learn it, figure it out. And you have a very high performance, precision driven industry, which is aviation.
Yeah.
And what do you believe women leaders bring most to an organization that specifically is precision driven, like aviation?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the women that we work with at Thrive are extremely meticulous and precise and want perfectionist, if you will. And so even across some of the other VPs, whether it's Michelle, our VP of sales, she is so particular, and she just makes sure that from a sales side we're so buttoned up, and she just does such a good job over there, and is so detail oriented that there's so many details that I would miss in that role that she is just so dialed in on. And then you think about Caroline Egbert. She's our vice president of client services and owner services, and there's little special touches that she'll do for some of our clients, or she'll even come in and say, "Hey, it's so and so's birthday," or "It's this and that," and it's like, oh my gosh, we need that on the calendar. We need to get flowers. We need to do this, and just again, it's there's just things that these women are bringing to the table that would be missed if they weren't there. That elevate and push Thrive forward every day.
Do you have any advice for other male leaders who really do want to support women but aren't sure how to do it without getting it wrong? Because I do at times think there is this stigma that can happen with male leaders at times who have been surrounded by kind of the other good old boys network, if you will, that does still exist in certain industries. What have you gone through in terms of maybe not necessarily being afraid of making those decisions, because you truly are all about the betterment and the best decision for Thrive.
Yes.
But I'm sure you've had counterparts or peers that need to maybe break the norm, and in other industries that are male dominated. I mean, do you have anything that people could take away with some nuggets of advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of our core values is unzip the armor, which basically means being able to be open, be vulnerable, have difficult conversations. And a lot of that leads with, hey, what you did there wasn't working for me. This would potentially be better, right? That's a great way to kick off like a feedback conversation. And so I think if anybody is looking to expand the female presence in their company at whatever level, I think that they just need to they need to unzip the armor and be honest and be vulnerable and ask questions. And I think that they'll quickly realize that there's a certain perspective that they're probably missing that would be very beneficial. And again, if you're leading a company and an organization, it's your duty to constantly be leveling up as a leader and as a person, and ultimately your team gets better, your department gets better, and the company gets better. And so I would say that it's a huge disservice if somebody doesn't open up that door and at least look into that. It's a disservice to the company that they're trying to build that is their responsibility.
Sure. That's very powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Yeah.
Kelly, the amazing VP of People and Culture, which I love because I guess human resources is out the window. That title is like gone in corporate America. I think it's moving toward People and Culture, which I love because it speaks to so many things that Curtis was talking about, and really positions like yours exist to lead people and to lead culture. And you do exactly that. So as VP, you're shaping the heartbeat of the organization. You've been doing that for many, many years. And what does it mean to you personally to lead at Thrive?
Well, I take great pride in my role as a VP of People and Culture here at Thrive. And, we are a people-first organization, and that we make every decision based on, is it for the greater good of Thrive and what's best for the person here individually. But in the role, I can make a huge impact. So we only have 250 employees right now, and I know each of them by name. So I can build a connection and, create career paths or growth plans for each individual.
Yeah, and to say only 250, I think it's important for the audience to understand how many employees you started with and that growth you've had over the last 5 years.
Sure. So when I started with the company 4 years ago, we had just over 100. So we have more than doubled in headcount since the last 4 years.
And she's being a little modest there.
Yeah,
That's just the hiring. There's
Right.
so much that goes on into the onboarding of someone, and then how we find these people and review the resumes and recruit them, and setting up the consistent interviews with her team, the culture interview. So I think it's important to highlight that one of her ideas was, hey, let's start an interview with a culture interview, right? Because that's kind of the barrier. And if they fit culturally, then let's pass them on, whether it's our chief pilot or DO to do a technical interview on the pilot side, or a technical interview with sales or something like that. And I've loved that because I feel like we've weeded out a ton of people that aren't culture fits, right? And one of, Kelly and I talk about this all the time, but one of my jobs and one of Kelly's jobs is to protect Thrive both externally and internally. And it's super critical that we get the right culture fit in. And it's just, I love that filter that Kelly implemented in the interview process.
Can you expand on how you came up with the culture interview process and what some of those questions look like for those who might be listening who need to say, wow, I really need to change. I either have an opportunity to change the culture in my company, or I have an opportunity to bring a really great idea to the executives. Can you just describe a little bit about what that culture interview looks like?
Sure. So we have our core values, and what we did is we developed interview questions based on those core values. So one of them is burn the boats. So we ask every candidate, can you, we explain the core value. Curtis, you might be able to jump in there to describe the burn the boats a little bit better than me, but
Yeah, well, he goes through all the core values, then he asks which one is your favorite, right?
He does burn the boat specifically, and he says, can you tell me a time when you've burned the boats in your life?
Yeah. And
just push forward with a project or.
Yeah, and the premise of burn the boats is it's the story of the Romans, and the general had his the military. They breached the island. They were outnumbered 10-1. He turned around and burned the boats. He's like, "There's two ways out of here. We either survive and move forward, or we all perish." And the concept came from a sermon that my wife actually listened to in Dallas before we moved. And it's burning the boats on, specifically there is your faith, right? You go all in on your faith, but it permeates the rest of your life. Burn your boats and be fully committed. Go all in on being a husband or a wife or a mother or a father or a spouse. And your career, go burn your boats and go fully committed on your career. So when we moved out here, Jen was like, you got to listen to this podcast, or you got to listen to this sermon from the pastor. And she's like, if we're going to go out and chase this crazy dream of yours, like we're going to burn the boats. Yeah. Like we're moving our family, uprooting everything. And what's really cool is we've probably moved 20 to 25 families that previously did not live in Las Vegas or Nevada and moved them here because of Thrive.
Wow.
And so whenever, it's to build what we're trying to build at Thrive requires everybody to be fully committed and fully bought in. And that's kind of the premise of the Burn the Boats.
Yeah. And with that too, we hire, we promote, and we terminate based on our core values. So every decision that we make is based on those. And one thing too, Angel, my recruiter, what he does, we hire a lot of pilots. The majority of our employee group is pilots. So when he's talking to them, he says, okay, is this somebody that can you could sit next to for 8 hours, have a conversation with? Because it's important that you're going to be able to have that relationship with your co-pilots.
Yeah, I love that you've talked about the core values. Obviously, the core values in most corporations or most companies are talked about during the onboarding process, and maybe at times, if you're lucky, they're on a wall somewhere in a break room. And if you guys, I definitely know, but if you all could give us some examples of how how you keep your core values alive every day from the people and culture perspective, and how you are truly leading through those with your decisions being made. But how in the day-to-day operation side, you've hinted a little bit to it, but I think a lot of people struggle with the fact that they joined a company or they joined an organization based on their core values. And they go over it in the onboarding, they see it plastered on a wall, and then that's it, because those core values don't show up anymore. So how do you keep those after the tenure you both have had, and the years that you're celebrating now with the growth that you're seeing from a people perspective? How do you keep those core values? What are your core values, and how do you keep those alive, breathing, and well in day-to-day operations?
So our core values are unzip the armor, cheer on, in the lab, be like water, and burn the boats. And we use those in everyday language. So we're having a conversation. I'll go to Curtis and say, Curtis, I need to unzip the armor and talk to you, have an uncomfortable conversation. I think that one is probably the one that's used the most in everyday language. If somebody says, hey, I just need to get in the lab and really focus on this project and this deadline, we cheer on. Whenever we have celebrations or we do birthdays, we always say we're going to cheer on our employees. So we do use each of these in everyday language.
Yeah, we definitely. So I will say for anybody out there listening, so instilling and implementing core values and having it drip and become part of the DNA of the company is not an easy task. And I think one of the stats that we've heard from Coach Dan is that it takes 7 times for someone to hear something before it really resonates with them. And so we talk about core values from the initial culture interview. We talk about it during onboarding and in-doc. I do a session called History and Vision where I go through the entire history of the company, and we talk about the core values there. They are plastered all over the wall.
Yes, they are. Yes.
We have name badges. We're putting them on the back of name badges. So we're actually always thinking about ways that we can push the core values. But it's one thing for us to sit here and talk about it and say it, and it's harder to get it out there in the DNA, and we really try to be focused and diligent on that every day.
The other thing too is we do quarterly shout outs for our shining stars, our best employees. And so what we do is we send it out to leadership and say, hey, tell us somebody who really stepped up in the last quarter, and we have them tie it to one of the core values. And same with the Aviator and Employee of the Year. Those are tied to the core values. Tell us how they embody a core value.
Sure. No, that's so important. I think you guys do it really, really well. And I feel it even going into your buildings. I feel it from the people that I interact with, and I read it on the walls. And so, but it all makes sense. So I think I commend both of you for that. Kelly, from your perspective, what actually helps women succeed inside organizations beyond surface level initiatives? Beyond the core values, beyond the initiative of, and I'm not sure if you have this, but, we need to hire, X amount of people, and we need to make sure that X amount are women. Not that you do that at all, but beyond kind of the surface level in a male-dominated industry, and I know you've come from the casino gaming industry, which is male-dominated, and now Thrive Aviation, which is male-dominated. So what do you think helps women succeed inside these organizations?
I think speaking up is extremely important. Providing your opinion, taking on projects, raising your hand and saying, hey, Curtis, I would be the best people and culture leader you've had, so you should hire me or promote me. There's been a time where I've gone to Curtis and done exactly that. So as long as you speak up when it's appropriate, right? And I think if you show up consistently, you work hard, it will you'll naturally be successful.
Yeah, you hit on a few things, right? Speaking up, I think a lot of women really struggle, as we've talked about, having really tough conversation, and unzip the armor kind of goes back to that philosophy for all of you to help in those situations. Having a point of view and being opinionated in corporate America is okay, and there's nothing to be afraid of. And this is what I try to teach women through mentorship and through my courses, is to really make sure that you're showing up consistently, right, with a point of view and an opinion, because you will be seen and heard. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I want to go back to that story with Kelly. We were looking at finding a director, VP of people and culture, and we were kind of talking to Kelly about this, and figuring out the next level of the company and what that looked like. And Kelly just walked in, closed the door, and it's like, I got to unzip the armor, which is why I love that core value, because it just makes it so easy to have those conversations. And she's like, I want the role, and I can do it. And she's like, give me 6 months, and I'm gonna knock it out of the park. And there was like no questions. Like, yeah, absolutely. If we can promote from within, and we can make this seamless. And she was hungry and wanted it, and she came in and was like, I want the role. I'm gonna earn it and prove it, and give me 6 months.
That's
and
right.
That was years ago.
And that is
That was 3 years ago, like right now.
That what I want to highlight is that was extremely bold in a male-dominated industry. You walked in with a point of view and opinion and said, I can do it. Give me the role. Give me 6 months. And corporations definitely want to hire from within.
Absolutely.
Right? You know, you're walking the walk, talking the talk. You understand the culture, the organization, the people piece, the leaders that you're ultimately reporting to, right? So I think that advice and that bold move that you made as a woman in that position, I commend you for that. And I really encourage those that are listening to do the same thing, because you never know what the only answer is, no, or let's talk about it. That's it. There's no other answer. And most of the time, if you're not speaking up, they'll never know that you want the position. Exactly. They'll never know that you aspire to have that position, especially if it's only written once a year in a one-on-one, right, or a review.
Absolutely.
So what leadership skill do you think women are most underestimated for in industries that you've worked in?
I would say collaboration and teamwork. I think, especially here at Thrive, the women leaders that we have, everyone is extremely collaborative and problem solvers, right? I think you look at the 3 VPs that we have; they're collaborators. They put their teams first. They celebrate the successes of their teams probably better than any other departments that we have at Thrive.
Yeah, that's powerful. Kelly, what advice do you have for women who are stepping into leadership roles and they may be the only woman in the room?
I would say...
That's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. I would say speak up and give your opinion and stay consistent. And there's nothing wrong with providing your opinion and your feedback. And, the more comfortable and the more you speak up, the more the leadership team is going to trust you. Yeah. And so it's just staying that consistent and speaking up.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was a time that you were the only.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. So
there
was a time you were in that position. So so if you could think back to when that was just you, obviously there's nerves that you were working through, but how was that first few years that you were the only woman in that leadership role?
Yeah, I think I was a sponge at first, and I do this in every role where I kind of soak everything in and understand the, the climate and the interactions. And then once I get comfortable, then I'm ready to go. I speak my mind, and but I think it took probably a couple months to really get comfortable and speak up.
Yeah.
What I would also say with, she was, I remember the first, couple months or whatever, and she'd be sitting there just writing all these notes, and I'm sitting there thinking like, what is she writing? I'm like, did I say something? I was like, is there something do I have something in my teeth? Or is it like, what is she writing about? What is going on? And then it was really, really cool. She would, again, she didn't come from an aviation background, right? And there's a lot of acronyms in aviation, just like every industry, and a lot of just like aviation isms, if you will.
Sure.
And so she would come into the office, either my office or Ricky's, and she's like, okay, what does this mean? What is this acronym? When you guys said this, how does that impact the company? And what does specifically this, that, or the other mean? And so was just super curious and wanted to learn everything there was about aviation, so that then she could, because she's an expert in people and culture, right? And then wanted to get as up to speed as possible on the aviation side to make the biggest impact. So that was awesome, because all the notes that she was writing was just questions on trying to learn things and get up to speed on the things that she didn't know, which was very refreshing and heartwarming.
Yes, we're fast, diligent learners.
Yes.
Typically, when we have to level up. So what does future leadership look like at Thrive? And that's my first question. The second part of that is, how do women continue to play a vital role in that vision? And you probably both can have an opinion on that.
You want to go first?
I'm trying to think of how I want to respond.
Or you go.
I would say that as we continue to grow the company, leadership will evolve and change. And it will be important just to make sure that we hire the best people, promote the best people from within that do fit our core values. And I think we've been extremely supportive of women, and we've developed women. In the last year, we partnered with you and developed 6 female leaders, up and coming leaders who will make a huge impact at Thrive.
Sure. Yeah. And I hope they're all doing well. I keep track of them, and they all seem to be flourishing in their roles.
They are.
They've all gained the courage to unzip the armor.
Yes. Yes.
And show up a little different in terms of their roles. So in that corporate partnership that we have, just so our audience knows, Thrive was one of my first corporate contracts, and I can't thank them enough, where they identified 6 emergent leaders within the organization. Kelly, not necessarily an emergent leader, but was there as part of the group. And we did the 6-week mentorship, Her Collective Power program with them, and saw some really great results in terms of befores and afters, and that continued sustainable learning, which I do like to make sure that everything we're doing is extremely sustainable. So thank you for that.
Sure. I wanted to touch on some of those. Those are great questions. So at Thrive, what I've noticed, and I think at any company, every few years you hit a ceiling, you have to break through that ceiling. And that involves growing personally and professionally. Since we started the company, we've overhauled the leadership team 3 times, which has been very interesting to see how that's evolved. So I think we're in the middle of leveling up the company and breaking through the next ceiling of our growth. And so we're constantly trying to get ahead of that one step at a time. We do a really good job at onboarding into the company, and now one of our focuses is onboarding into the seat and the actual role. So that's to make sure that we're successful in bringing all these people on. And then as far as the specific women leaders that we have, I think that the class and the workshop that they did with you was absolutely phenomenal. We actually heard a ton of positive feedback about that. We always we do a yearly annual all hands, and that was one of the biggest things. We like look back and celebrate our wins. We call it like the Hall of Fame or whatever, and that came up consistently across the board. We ask everybody, right? Let's like compile our, so we can celebrate. That came up a lot. And then I think one of the things that we really got and that I got out of just working with you also is just the attire and the clothing.
Say that, yes.
I know, but it's so true.
It is true.
And it's just like, it's really like, I mean, if you look around the company, especially the people that were in your workshop, there's a couple I can think of right immediately on the top of my head that literally every day they show up better every single day from just a professional standpoint ever since taking your class.
Yeah, and CEOs notice. So women listening, how you show up with purpose and how you're dressing and how the effort and intentionality, CEOs notice this consistently. So I think that's important for people to think about.
Absolutely.
And it's a real thing. Well, Curtis and Kelly, I cannot thank you enough for being here today, showing us what real leadership looks like when it's fully aligned with culture, values, and actual action taken consistently. So I think all of you at Thrive are doing an amazing job. So this is what collective women's leadership is all about. It's not asking for seats at the table, right? We are building the table to sit at. So with that, if you love this conversation, make sure you subscribe to the Collective Mic. We're both on Spotify and YouTube. Share it with a leader who needs to hear this, maybe about bringing to life all of the things they stand for in the company in terms of their core values. Lead boldly and lead collectively. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon. Welcome to the Collective Mic, the podcast where women leaders get loud about what really matters. I'm your host, Joyce Tody, founder of Collective Women's Leadership. We are not here for fluff. We're here to lead, build, and rise together. Whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, building your own brand, or redefining leadership on your terms, this mic is for you. So let's get into it.